Okay. Hi, Tracey-Mae. Thank you for joining me for this interview. I'll start with you introducing yourself, what nation you come from, and just explain how you are involved in Métis culture.
Okay, my name is Tracey-Mae Chambers. I am from Ontario, and I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation of Ontario. My family's from several different traditional communities within the Métis Nation of Ontario. And I am here building an installation entitled Hope and Healing Canada, all one hashtag, all of those letters together as one hashtag, as opposed to, a title. And yeah, I think you're my 170th installation across Canada in the last 3 years.
Guide me through your journey as an artist thus far in your life.
Originally, I was painting. I think it's like every other artist, you use what you can afford at the time, and then you progress. So I started with acrylics. Well, I started with drawing as a child, of course, and then acrylics as I got older, and then encaustic, which is painting with beeswax mixed with damar resin and natural pigments. Then I did some sculpting with encaustic, which was really great, and that was wonderful. But then Kamloops happened. So when we were watching the news, they talked about residential schools and the discovery of unmarked graves at Kamloops. And I wanted to be able to talk about my reaction to the reaction of Canadians, of settlers sort of being aghast about something that was probably known to most First Nations folks or Inuit folks or Métis folks. So I was encouraged that they were devastated, but I also saw it as an opportunity for learning and for me to learn, but also for them to learn as well. So, but I'm a sculptor, and the sculpting that I do is quite visceral, and I didn't think there was any way for me to talk about something like residential schools in a respectful, non-confrontational manner. So at the time I was listening to this newscast, I was actually fixing a crocheted blanket that I had made for one of my boys, and I realized, wait, I'm fixing this, right? So I realized, okay, well, this would be a great medium for me, even though I only knew one crochet stitch, which is just, nothing to be proud of. But so I realized that it was still something fixable. So it started with that. And that was sort of how the journey has come to textiles, because it's a way to express dismay and to start conversations that are not confrontational and us fighting with one another, but learning from one another as much as we can.
So your current traveling installment is entitled #Hope and Healing Canada, and you kind of touched on how the idea for these started, but how did you begin the process of actually taking these across Canada?
I'm persistent. I was going to say persevering, but maybe I am, but I'm really persistent because I realize that lots of museums and art galleries and places that are not necessarily welcome to everyone in our community are looking at decolonization. So, and looking at making the space to be comfortable for everyone. So how can I start that conversation when we have a generational difference? We have all sort of a common goal maybe, but very conflicting ideas about what that goal or the end result should look like. So I think I wanted to be able to tell stories that weren't just one demographic, which is white male. And it's one thing to joke about it, which we do joke about those kinds of things, but they're really serious issues. And we don't tell newcomer stories. We certainly don't tell female stories of any demographic. We don't tell stories of people who are on the marginalized fringes of society. We only tell one story. And I think lots of us, and I think present company included, are tired of that. I think my voice is just, just as relevant as yours and anyone else's. So the only person to tell those stories is us. So they need to be included in places like this. And that's really what was important to me.
And what is the importance and significance of your medium?
It carries stories in a different way that, say, a steel sculpture would, or that one of my sculptures out of beeswax would, or something like that. This is going to degrade. That's the whole point of it. I get kind of annoyed when people say, oh, but what about outside? It's going to like fray and stuff. Yes, of course it is. That's the point. None of us escape that. We're all fraying and aging, and, you know, that's the point of it. I don't need it to be eternal. Well, there is no eternal. I don't need it to be a permanent fixture, because it's not representing something that's permanent, which is us. We are not permanent. So I like that it frays, and I like that it fades in the sun and fades in the rain. So what other medium could I have used that would weather the outside and the inside? And then each time that it goes somewhere, I add another layer to it, which is why these are layered. So it would have started out as the smallest color, and then so you can see it's been here, then it's been here, then it's been here, right? So that's important, because that represents, like the rings of a tree, it's representing those years, but not just growth. It's representing what happened in that time period. It's representing that community.
You kind of touched on this, but what is the overarching purpose of this project?
To interrupt spaces, to intervene into spaces that never would have represented you or I 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It seems like it's such a long time ago, but it really isn't. The point of it is to tell more than one story. That's it, to decolonize those spaces and tell the stories of the people that were displaced along the way, to make room for other people, to make room for newcomers, to make room for everyone. I don't need them to interpret it any more than to say that they recognize that there is a disparity between how people are treated, right? Any group, it doesn't matter, not just Indigenous folks, but there is differences in how we're treated, whether it's monetary, whether it's social, anything. We're all treated differently based on how we look, who we are, who our parents were, whatever. So if it's enough for me just that somebody says, yes, that's right, I need to sort of check myself and say, I am doing that. We're all doing it. It's silly to think that we're not, each individual. We're doing it without knowing it, right? So, and judging without knowing it. So, and excluding without knowing it. So I think that's really, that's it. It's simple. I just want them to recognize that there's more to the story. There's more to everyone's story. It's not, nothing is ever as simple as we'd like it to be. So dig a little deeper and figure it out.
What actions could I take as a non-Indigenous person to support Indigenous development and the road toward reconciliation? It's a hard question only because no one has that answer. You can only be kind, be humane, and do your best as a human being. That's all there is, right? But these grand schemes or grand ideas of, if we do this and this and this, everything will be better, are not realistic, right? So just sitting and talking with me is part of that road, is one stone in that framework of reconciliation. So, but also acknowledging it is part of that too. Just saying, what can I do, is part of that as well, right? Recognizing that something was wrong. That's it. It's so simple. I have to like talk a lot to make it make sense to people, but that's it. That's all I got. It's to make people notice that we're actually here, right? So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.